Hey guys, and how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Trains with Shane. This one is a kind of a follow-up to my watch this before you buy a used Bachmann N scale locomotive. But this time we're going to cover Atlas. Atlas, interestingly, is a little bit more complicated than Bachmann is. As a matter of fact, I'm going to call this segment Garbage to Greatness. Unlike Bachmann, who manufactured all of their own stuff from the beginning, Atlas started out as pretty much just an importer of other people's manufacture. Eventually, they ended up setting up their own manufacturing, their own QC, all of that later on. But in the beginning, they were just importers. This is going to be just kind of a loose and fast video. I'm not going to dive into very deep specifics. If you want something for really good specifics on any particular model, my suggestion is always to go look on spookshow.net and look there, because he'll have a detailed breakdown of the history of, let's say for this instance, Atlas's SD45. This went through a couple of different generations. This GP7/9 here went through many different manufacturing changes, and this video is going to be pretty much just a quick and dirty rundown of what to look for and really what not to look for when buying an N-scale diesel locomotive made by Atlas. Atlas these days really makes some very good stuff. Anything made within the last 10 or 15 years or so is on par with anything else out there. It might not be a rivet counter from Scale Trains or something like that, but then again, you're not paying $300 for one. So let's get started kind of at the beginning. One of the earliest examples is this SD45 right here. I picked this up kind of mistakenly, and I really wasn't looking too close at it. I just saw that it was a demo unit and I wanted it. Look closely and you'll see some telltale signs here. You see the two holes here and here where the body connects to the frame. If you flip it over, you get even more bad news. You'll see that we have an unpowered truck up front, a single powered truck with only two powered axles back here. What I'm assuming is a weight in the middle here. On some of these, this will look like formed plastic. On some of them, it'll look like a cast piece of lead that was painted or something like that. But if we turn this over and look a little more closely, you'll notice this says Atlas Yugoslavia on it. And as you will have guessed, these were manufactured in Yugoslavia by Mahano. Model Power, a bunch of people have had stuff manufactured in Yugoslavia. There were more successes in HO scale than N scale for sure. If you get an old Mahano in HO scale, it's probably a runner, and it might not be great, but it'll work pretty well. These are garbage. Avoid these at all costs unless you're looking for something aesthetic to sit on a siding somewhere or to pull around as a dummy unit or something. If it says Yugoslavia in N scale, at least as far as locomotives go, and it only has one driven truck, run away. There are some exceptions to this, and I'll go over this in a minute, although I'm going to have to use a model power unit instead of a Mahano, or instead of an Atlas unit. So in the early days, Atlas worked with Mahano, and Mahano manufactured and Atlas imported. And these were pretty well garbage. Do not buy them. Later on, Atlas worked with Rivarossi, as noted here on the RR. As far as quality of manufacture goes, a lot better than the Mahano unit. But This one still isn't a fantastic design. Mostly lending to that we've got one truck here that picks up power and only one is driven. In this case, metal gears. They tend to be a tiny bit noisy, but for a unit that only has one driven truck, they don't run too horribly. And you have to take that with a grain of salt, because when I say they don't run too horribly, that's comparing them to this crap. River Rossi has made decent looking shells, as you can see here, and this is probably older than I am. These are probably 1960s, 1970s vintage here. But yeah, the River Rossi, much better components and quality of manufacture, but the design, having only the one driven truck, tends to lend itself to not working great. But you know, if you get one of these in a lot, don't toss it. Give it a run around, see if it works well, because you might have a pretty smooth runner. I had a couple of the early FMC units in Santa Fe colors. I sold them, but they both ran fairly smooth for what they were. So if it says made in Italy by RR, that's by River Rossi. I don't have dates, you know, when Atlas switched from who to manufacture what, because it gets kind of confusing, and I don't want to cloud the issue with that. So here we have yet another manufacturer. This one I actually have a box for, so for reference, if you see the box, very plain white paper insert, not a whole lot of info on it, just what we've got. Made in Austria. So what we're probably looking at here is probably made by Roco. On the bottom you see more of the same Atlas, made in Austria. Big upgrade here. Both trucks are driven and both trucks pick up power. The detailing is okay. Again, for the era, this is probably manufactured late 70s, early 80s, if I had to guess. This particular unit doesn't run very well, but that's probably just because I haven't had time to take it apart and troubleshoot it. Look for a Will It Run video on this one eventually. I just haven't had time yet. Oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. But yeah, easily distinguishable by the red gears, and made in Austria. And otherwise, a pretty decent looking machine. It will probably run okay. It might be a little bit noisy once I get it all cleaned up. It's a power pickup issue. If you guys are fans of the channel and have watched previous videos, you've seen me clean up some pretty skunky looking drivetrains and have them end up being pretty decent. So I'm hoping this will be more of the same. Would I recommend buying one of these? Yeah, I guess so. If you can pick one up for less than 20 bucks, it's probably an okay bet. They're not fantastic runners, but they're okay. Definitely a step above garbage. So, Roco, Austrian manufactured Atlas, decent, just don't pay a lot of money for them. At some point in the 1980s, Atlas teamed up with Kato. And if you guys know Kato, you know that they OEM'd for a couple of people. They OEM'd for Concor, for some really great E-units that were actually a combination of River Rossi shells and Kato drive mechanisms. I've got one. You guys look up a previous video I've got. It's a Concor Kato E8 in Southern Pacific colors. Go check that video out, which are amazing. Here's an example. This is one of the N-scale locomotives that I've had the longest. And Atlas, made by Kato. And it's a good old Alco RS3. The way you will spot these, they usually won't have anything on the tank here. If it says made in Japan on the tank, then it might be a Kato rather than an Atlas. As far as branding goes, it doesn't matter because it's the same great mechanism. come up here on the trucks and notice it says Japan right here. Sometimes Kato used traction tires on opposite corners, like for instance there would be one here and one here, but all 4 axles are geared. Both trucks pick up power, but both trucks don't pick up power from both sides. This truck picks up power from this side, this truck picks up power from the opposite side. And as you can see, we're now using a split frame chassis, and this unit in this era is really where Kato came up with this, and this is really where all this caught on. Excellent mechanism for the era. You can see we still got the open pilots with the truck mounted rapido couplers. That was just a sign of the times. It's nothing to scoff at. If you find an Atlas like this, and if it says made in Japan or Japan on the trucks, it's made by Kato, and you are getting a very good locomotive for its time. The older units do not have flywheels. Their slow speed characteristics aren't as good. The pickup isn't as good, but still, I've got quite a few, what am I looking for here? Words are hard. Quite a few examples of this mechanism, and several of them are on the channel here. I've got this one. I've got the RS11 here, which I featured on another episode. Both the same mechanism. Both run great. This one got a little scongy and needed a clean, but after a good clean, started running great again. Here's a look at the box, a little bit of the evolution. You'll see it's a little bit fancier on the lettering. Now it says Atlas, Hillside, New Jersey. Gives you not only the type of locomotive, but the livery it's in. Red paper. Okay. I have seen these. I did not pay 89 bucks for this. I have seen these with blue paper as well. I don't have any examples of that. If you find a Kato made example of one of these and you want to buy it, you certainly should pay a little bit more, or be willing to pay a little bit more than any of this stuff down here. You'll get what's probably a great runner. There's lots of support out there. Not a lot of spare parts for these out there, but that's probably because all of them are still running. Kato used great materials, and they really set the standard for everything that was to follow with this particular chassis design. I'd pay 30-40 bucks in a heartbeat for one of these if it was in good condition with the box, like our little RS11 here. I've got 2 of those actually, and it's fantastic. At some point, and I think this was in the late 80s, it may have been in the early 90s, Atlas and Kato decided to part ways. Here's another example of another Kato manufacturer, and this one is actually Kato. As you can see, it's branded on the bottom as Kato, but the exact same as our RS3 here. Anyway, like I was saying, Kato and Atlas eventually went their own separate ways. I'm not really sure why. Maybe Kato wanted to import their own stuff under their label in the US. So as you can see, Kato and Atlas units kind of paralleled each other for a while. So it may be hard to distinguish them between each other, but honestly, you're getting the same good mechanism anyway, so it really doesn't matter. 30-40 bucks worth that easy. I've paid as much as 50 for one used, but in like new condition. Once Atlas and Kato split ways, Atlas went from just importing other people's stuff to setting up their own tooling and manufacturing. And like a lot of people do, they did this in China. But that's not a detriment to the quality of their stuff, because it got even better. I know these days we like to say stuff made out of Chinesium is garbage, and a lot of it is, but there is good stuff. It all comes down to quality control and quality standards and who's in control of it and what you're willing to pay to manufacture something. So Atlas later started manufacturing stuff under their Chinese manufacturer. Obviously, these will say made in China on the box. Here's one example of a box of something that's made in China. The waters can get kind of gray here because, take a look at this. Here's another one. Very similar box, yeah? But if you flip this over, it's made in Japan. So this is still Kato made right here. This one's a little bit later. I should have thrown this one into the lineup. This one was probably made in the 90s. Flywheels, newer mechanism. This thing is smooth as butter. Worth 50, 60 bucks all day long. Obviously, the cheaper you can get them, the better. But always look at where it says it was made. With this particular white box, with this logo and the slide off top, it's not a real big deal, because at this point, whether it was made in Japan or whether it was made by Atlas themselves in China, you're getting a good unit. Let me pop this guy open right here if I can get it. This one has a little bit of custom weathering and stuff on it, so look past that and we'll just take an up-close look at it. You've got an SD 50 or 60 here, depending on who you ask. I'm not good enough to spot the differences, so I bought it because it was Kansas City Southern. And if you look, we got a split chassis here. 6 trucks, all are geared, all pick up power. Notice the copper strips here. I don't remember if Kato invented this or if Atlas invented this, but I know that I see it most often on Atlas locomotives, and it works very well. It's just to help transfer power up from the trucks to the split chassis, which, as you can see here, is still a split chassis. You probably can't see it, but there are flywheels in here on this mechanism. For the purposes of this discussion, it doesn't really matter. This thing is a beautiful runner. It is smooth. It'll handle a 6.5-inch radius curve, if you can believe that or not. It'll do it all day long. But yeah, just look for those strips. If it's got the strips, then it's made by Kato in China, so it's a good, decently safe bet to pick it up. And always look for the made in, whether it's China or Japan or whatever. As an aside, if you guys are aware of the famous Atlas yellow box units that are in HO scale, they'll also say on the box made in Japan, and if so, they're made by Kato, because Kato is making HO scale for them as well. If it doesn't say made in Japan, then it might be made by Rocco in Austria. The HO scale Austrian units, the Atlas yellow box, are also still very good. So while you wouldn't pay as much as you would for a Kato, it's worth money. So another later Atlas unit is this GP7 here. This one, as you can see, says Atlas copyright 95. This particular unit was from a run released in 2011. It looks like I got some snotty lubricant there. I should probably clean up. The trucks look very similar to the Kato ones, if you can see. They're made differently, though. But again, if it'll say made in China on the bottom, and you'll see the copper strips. Very, very, very good, smooth running locomotive. Definitely worth paying 50, 60 bucks for, if you can find one in good shape. Here's another evolution of the packaging. I'm not sure of the specifics on this. Pay no attention to the foam balls here. These are safety measures done by a friend of mine to keep the outward stretched sunshades in place. And this unit has been slightly weathered. Here's the end of the box. Again, it looks like the other boxes with the Atlas logo in full color. And let's see, does it say? Yeah, it does say made in China right here. So again, Atlas's own manufacturing. This thing is one of the best running locomotives that I've got in DC. It's fantastic. So, long story short, go with caution with the early stuff. Avoid Yugoslavia like the plague in N scale, because that stuff is garbage. Speaking of Yugoslavia, let me elaborate on this. This is a model power / Mahano unit. And the reason I'm going to show you this is this particular arrangement. Notice we've got dual powered trucks. Both trucks pick up power. Made in Yugoslavia by Mahano. Again, this is a model power unit. But if you see an Atlas unit that has this arrangement on it, it'll probably not be great, but it won't be near the hunk of garbage that one of these is here, with the split front truck and the one truck that's driven. I've got a couple of Mahano model power RSD 15s that use this similar mechanism, and they actually run fairly decent. You know, it's worth $15 maybe. I wouldn't pay more than that. But yeah, I wanted to show you guys that one because you may, I haven't, but you may come across an Atlas from Yugoslavia that has that truck arrangement underneath it. So, while not a fantastic buy, if you can pick it up cheap enough, it might be an okay runner for a small layout, or maybe if you have a son or daughter or a nephew or a niece that's getting into the hobby and you don't want to be buying $150, you know, new Atlas or Kato DC units, you know. But yeah, in wrapping up, people like to get down and bag on Bachmann, and they praise Atlas like Atlas has always been the shining beacon of quality, when in fact that was not always the case. As far as the company Atlas goes these days, I can give you guys a story. I reached out to Atlas support a couple of weeks ago, and let's see what this is, November 2021. I reached out to them a couple of weeks ago looking for a motor for a unit that was not a current production unit. It was this vintage here, you know, 2011 manufacture. I wasn't looking for a warranty repair. I was looking to buy something, you know. I know they didn't offer the part that I needed in any parts catalog that was current on their website or anything. I emailed customer service asking, hey guys, do you have something that would be a suitable replacement, you know, even though the part, it probably isn't made anymore. To their credit, the guy with Atlas support emailed me back and said, no, that unit hasn't been made in a decade, and we don't have any parts on the shelf, at least as far as motors go, because the problem was this thing would make a real bad screeching noise at a certain throttle level, and you could tell it was the motor resonating. And he said, I can't find any. Let me go look through our used spares if you would be open to one of those. And I said, sure. And a couple of days later, he emailed me back and said, hey, I found one. If you'd like, I'll send you an invoice for this and this plus this amount shipping, and we'll get her in the mail to you. And sure enough, they did. I've got tracking. I haven't received it yet because it was just a couple of days ago when I paid for it. But yeah, I was blown away. The customer service guy went and looked, found me a part in a spares bin, and was willing to help me out, you know. And I think that's awesome. So not all companies have great customer service stories, and I'm sure people have horror stories with dealing with Atlas, just like everybody has horror stories with dealing with every company. But that's my good customer service story experience. It's the only customer service experience I've had with them. Obviously, the new stuff, it's all very good. But if you're going to buy used on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or wherever, hopefully this will help you be somewhat informed of what you're buying. Stuff to really avoid, stuff to maybe take a risk on if you don't spend a lot of money, stuff that's probably almost definitely worth picking up for the right price, and then stuff that's, you know, obviously nearly new, so it's going to be fantastic either way as long as it just wasn't beat to death. So anyways, guys, I've probably dwelled on this long enough. So here we go. N scale Atlas garbage to greatness, and a couple of things in between. So with that, again, I want to invite you guys to go to spookshow.net. If you have any specific questions on any specific model, you can look them up by the model versus the importer, which would be Atlas in this case. And yeah, always check there before buying something used. That way you know what you're getting and you don't end up with any surprises. So anyways, guys, I want to thank you for sitting down with me on another episode of Trains with Shane on the I Saw It Online YouTube channel. We just passed 100 subscribers a couple of days ago. I'm pretty excited about that. Who knows, I might stage a little giveaway, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.